Capcom putting out specific characters at specific times so that they can pull players back who have recently quit. Okay, so like if somebody played the game for the first year and they're no longer into it and they let the game go, Capcom will, you know, I think they've scheduled their character releases based on character popularity to make sure they can bring people back into the game. And so usually we see that with characters being released, and then a really big character release will come after kind of a lull period, right? In my opinion, although we don't have this confirmed, this is the reason why I believe Balrog will definitely be put into the game for the ROG players. Claw will definitely be amongst probably the ranks as well. Same thing with Sagat. I think the King will be back also just at a later date when they know they need more ammunition to pull people back. And so when we first looked at the Akuma patch, so Cammy's worst matchup in June or around that time, around the Akuma patch was Geef. Okay, no surprise there. So it's been kind of a war back and forth between those two characters. But everyone else, she's nearly 50%. Okay, Cammy's still sitting at. So that has ranked them as S tier because they have the highest win rate in the game at the moment. It looks like 5.35% average matchup spread puts them at S tier. So 51% out of 23,181 games, 51% of them went in Cammy's favor. And so that wasn't necessarily surprising to me at first, because I always thought Cammy was quite a tuned character. In pretty much every version of the game, Cammy's always had clout. You know, she's always been a strong pick. And wasn't surprised to see Ken up here either. Ken, in my opinion, is still one of the better characters in the game. Very good meter usage. Can send you corner to corner just like Cammy. And then Chun-Li was up here as well. Ed was sitting at 4th place. Okay, so around the time Akuma came out, Ed was sitting at 4th. Akuma's win rate was down here. He was still, I think, Cammy rated Akuma as a B tier because he was sitting at 50% win rate, which is really good, by the way. And Geef was still in the top, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters. Geef was still sitting at top 5 when Akuma came out. And I would attest that to Akuma players picking up the character, not really knowing what to do with that character, and then Geef basically being able to dump on them in the better part of 3 EX SPDs, right? So then we jump forward. Cammy's still sitting at the top, still considered S tier out of 33,000 games, and this is above 1,800 MR. 51.7% of them went in Cammy's favor. Okay. Again, not really that surprising, right? Cammy's a good character. Very good confirms. You know, strong defense, if you ask me. She's pretty well-rounded, and I think she's kind of in a good place. I don't think she needs nerfs, but I think she got adjusted. I can't remember exactly when they adjusted Cammy, but I think she got adjusted maybe not long after this. Between those 2 months, so if we go, so from June to July, when Ed and Bison came out, Cammy and Ed were still sitting at the top. Okay, so Ed jumped up, looks like 2 places or 3 spaces here in percentage. Came all the way up to the top and was sitting above JP, above Jury, you know, above Guile, and I think it was maybe Momochi who came up with the combo. And so the Ed players started to kind of come up a little bit, you know, like the tech started to be developed for the character and they started to come up. Okay, so and Bison on release was sitting down round about here. Now we still don't have a whole lot of data on, let's say, how high Bison is going to go, but he is the most recent character to be dropped in Street Fighter 6, and so I think people are starting to catch on to the gimmicks a little bit and, you know, kind of catch on to the character. Because when we jump forward again here, so this is September, so this is where we are right now, right here, right now. Ed is still sitting at the top, and so part of the reason why I've been so curious about this list here, Ed got a lot of scrutiny when he first was announced and people first played him. You know, Ed got spoken about as though he wasn't strong or not nearly as strong as the Street Fighter V version. You know, there's a lot of tools that Ed doesn't necessarily have, when compared to other characters, he doesn't have a command grab, he doesn't have an overhead, so it can be kind of hard to open people up usually without those two things, you know, like you need a way to add the scissors and the paper and the rock. And so as the tech has been developed for this character, it's kind of clear that something's going on here. And so two of these in a row, so even though these aren't 2 months in a row, because I think this one is from July, then we skipped August, and this one is from September, and from a larger sample size, assuming there are more players from 1700 up and they haven't quit, this is telling a whole different story to what we thought we were seeing, based on a lot of tier lists that we've seen. You know, obviously those are very subjective, based on a lot of you know, speculation that we see on Twitter, you know, on socials, and you know, some of the videos we've seen, the tournament placements, that kind of thing. This is telling a whole different story. I'm not surprised to see Blanca here. Okay, Cammy, also not surprising, right? We just talked about Cammy. Blanca did exceptionally well. I believe Evo, the first Evo, right? The first Evo for Street Fighter 6, Blanca was killing it. JP as well. JP was doing really well. So not surprised to see them in, you know, top 5, top 6, in the top 10 at all. But now I'm starting to see characters that I didn't think I would see topping the win rates. And I think I know what you guys might be thinking in terms of what I'm talking about here. And it's actually not Dhalsim, but Lily is actually coming up in the win rates above 1700. And the craziest thing about Lily is, like, if you look anywhere, if you look on most people's tier lists, and again, I know those are very subjective, you will see Lily placed all the way at the bottom in terms of ability, right? People like to rate Lily as though she is kind of a write-off character. She, you know, maybe doesn't necessarily have a lot of combo routes, you know, and really only has, according to a lot of really good players, 2 main things that you have to do. And if you do anything outside of those things, you lose. As long as you do those 2 things, you win. And my assumption is Condor Spire and Stand Heavy Punch would be amongst the 2 things that she really has to do. And I don't even play the character, but it would be very easy to assume that based on the Lilies that I've fought up until now. And so when we look at her win rate being 50.26%, and then we jump backwards here, I don't think we were seeing that before. You know, maybe people were writing the character off. Maybe they didn't understand what to do. Maybe we had to wait for El Chicote, shout out to Tay, to, you know, to win some tournaments to kind of show us how we're supposed to play this character. But look at where Lily is here. So this was the Akuma patch. Lily is all the way down here. So Lily is sitting at, if my eyes don't deceive me, 48.64% win rate here. And again, this is when Akuma came out. Typically speaking, Condor Spire is good when we're talking about Shotos. So I'm kind of surprised by this. Like, what took place here that allowed this character to come up? Basically, let's see. So this one, she was at 40. Let's see here. This one, she was around about 48.6%. This one, she's at 49.6%. So a whole percentage greater here. And then we come up again. Now she's sitting at 50%. So she's gone up just under 3% total. Or round about there. She's gone up round about 3% since Akuma came out. So what's changing? So either the meta is changing because you have more Bison players, you have more Rashid players, you have less JP players overall. I believe there's less JP players on my server for sure, but in general, I don't think I'm seeing as many JP players as I used to. So you have more Lily players, you know, more people picking up the character, maybe because they're bored or, you know, trying this character out for the first time, and then they end up liking her. Or the Lily players are just adjusting to the nonsense and they're working out what their flowchart needs to be. And she's gone 3% up since July. That's crazy to me. again, not surprised to see Blanca up there, but I have concerns. And one of my main concerns, one of the main reasons why I even wanted to talk about this in the first place, was that, in my opinion, and I've heard several other good players say this as well, but I don't really think it's a secret to anybody. Ed is a very overtuned character, and it's the 21st of the 9th, 2024 right now. So there hasn't really been any major adjustments to this character to put him at a disadvantage over the way he's currently presented. And I don't think Capcom has done anything in the last patches. I don't have the patch notes up, but they haven't done anything in the last few patches to adjust this character and change the way he plays on a deeper level. However, I am of the opinion that Ed, in a very big way, plays some of the best defense in this game. It's difficult to jump in on Ed. It's difficult to walk forward. And as I said in one of my tweets recently, a lot of Street Fighter 6 is played in the mid range overall, right? Like where in Street Fighter 5 you could play at a little bit of a further distance. You would still play mid range, but further distance, right? Characters like Gil, characters like Oro could play a little bit further back, or even just control the outside edge of the mid range. You had characters like Dalsum who could play full screen or play rushdown as well. You had characters like Rashid, who would stay right up on you. There were a lot of characters that could play further back. But in this game, I believe there's so many characters who control mid-range or want to stay in that mid-range, and Lily shines against characters that don't have an invincible reversal. And there's so many Bisons out there right now that could be one of the main reasons why she's doing so well, is that right now a lot of people are playing Shoto, so that's a lot of Akuma, a lot of Ken, quite a few Eds, if you want to consider Ed a Shoto. He's more of like a zoner, like a mid-range zoner. We're seeing Rashid more often now. So a lot of people are relying, maybe even some Guile. A lot of people are relying on fireballs right now to play the game. And Lily can probably put them in a very compromising position to force DPs. She's got good Oki. We saw that with El Chicote versus Noah the Prodigy. She can mix up Shotos pretty hard to where they have to guess. She has a lot of 50-50 situations, but two primarily that force you to do something. You have to react, and if you choose not to, she can just grab you, or the loop starts all over again. So when we're talking about Ed and we're talking about his ability to control the mid range, I have some concerns that this character is currently kind of getting, and I don't use this term a lot, but this character is kind of currently getting downplayed, because I was in someone's chat yesterday. I want to say, was it yesterday? And the statement was made. No, I'm not going to tell you who it is. It was a high-level Geef player, and the statement was made that Ed isn't that good. And then the Geef player corrected them and said Ed is actually overtuned, and right now he's a wall that can basically rush you down. And so we used to look at certain characters and give them that title in previous games, right? Like Guile was a wall in Street Fighter V. Guile could set up a wall, really good wall. Zangief was a wall in Street Fighter V, and it was very difficult to get over top of Geef in that game. And if you did get over top of him, Lariat was going to hit you from behind Geef's head, right? Because we're the Cyclone, it makes sense. There were quite a few characters like that. Abigail was a wall of sorts, right? You had to jump over Abigail's head. You had to know what he was going to do. You had to hope that he couldn't hit you with, cross up. A lot of times you could press V skill and do the chest bump as they crossed you up, and they would literally instantly teleport to the floor and spin in a circle, and then Abigail could get a punish. Alex had some very wall-esque gameplay. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Even Birdie, season 1 Birdie had the wall effect, right, with his crouching medium punch before they nerfed it. Right now, to me, and I'm not saying anybody else feels this way, but right now, to me, Ed feels like a wall, and in a lot of ways feels like the successor to Birdie. Some people might disagree when I say that, but Birdie had some very similar, very strong mid-range control that carried him through and even won an Evo. So, for example, decent anti-airs. Ed has one, and he also has a DP. Birdie had an air command grab, essentially, or an air grab, right? Where it did damage and it would put you very close to Birdie, if not right next to him, okay, with the up chain and the horizontal chain. Birdie had the can that traveled along the floor that you had to respect, especially if you were Geef. And don't I know it, right? Abigail could just run through those things, and that was the fun that we had with that character, but you had to respect the can, okay? And Birdie had excellent space control with stand medium punch, crouching jab that went 2 miles away, what felt like. Fantastic sweep. He had armored moves. Now, Ed doesn't have armor, but what Ed does have is sort of like poison. Ed has a way to pull you in and force you to guess. And so just like Manon does, Manon sort of has that kind of Laura shoulder dash +2 situation where she pulls you in and you have to decide, is it going to be a throw or a strike? And if you jump, am I going to eat a DP? Can I cross them up? Probably not. You know, that kind of situation. Ed has that right now. In addition to which, so let's go a little bit further. Ed also has some of the best meter management in the game as of the 21st of the 9th, 2024. Okay. So at the moment, Ed can get a mix. If he doesn't want to use EX, he doesn't have to. Okay. So let's say he punishes you with medium punch. Okay. I can't remember if it's standing or crouching medium punch, but it's the one where he flicks your feet. That makes it really hard for you to get in without jumping. He flicks your feet and then drive rushes. So he uses 2 or 3 bars, let's say, off the cancel. And then he has a command dash to basically be in your face and use up some of those plus frames or force you to guess. And it ends up always being a guess for characters that don't have an invincible reversal, in my opinion, okay? Most of the time you have to guess because he is plus, you know, sometimes maybe he's as little as +3, but you still have to guess. So my concern with this character is the downplay could lead to them not really adjusting him to where, and I know that Street Fighter 6, as a side note, or fighting games in general, are not meant to be fair, okay? So I should start by saying that. I understand fighting games are not meant to be fair, and the entire reason you play fighting games is to win. So if somebody wants to win, they should play characters that allow them to do so with as little risk and as high reward as possible. I understand Ed is that type of character. He is some risk, okay? He does have some risk. However, the reward that he has in a game where rushdown is encouraged and or defense is punished, but meter is everything. So meter is your actual health bar in this game. Whether you want to believe that or not, it doesn't matter. But your meter is usually tied directly to your health. And you'll find a lot of times, unless you're Noah the Prodigy, you can't just dump all your meter and still just get a perfect usually. Sometimes you can, okay, if you force them to guess, they're in the corner, you know, or what have you. But a lot of times when you go into burnout, the opponent will mount an offense and blow you up for going into burnout. So a character that allows you to move around the screen, sort of like Dalsum, and we can talk about Dalsum in just a second as well, because if I just zoom in here, Dalsum is actually sitting at the second highest win rate right now, 1700 plus. So we can talk about mobility in just a second here, but I don't believe this is the reason why Dalsum is up here, and I'll tell you why I believe he's up here in just a second after we talk about Ed. In a game where mobility is everything and having plus frames puts you in a position where you are as strong as Laura was in Street Fighter V, where as long as I can land a light, I can get a +2 situation. And I remember Daigo saying +2 is the best thing in Street Fighter V. You want to play a character that has as many +2 situations as possible. And that was one of the main reasons why Laura was so good. I think this is very problematic. So we're talking about basically top 3 here, or let's say top 3 for 2 months straight. We went through basically a year's worth of JP being overtuned. But Ed isn't being discussed in that way because people like the saucy combos and there's a little bit more counterplay to Ed than there is JP. But I'd really like to see Capcom make some adjustments to this character and his ability to just play this perfect mid-range game and control every part of it.